That's all right. I'm sure that they can refresh. They can brief him on the meeting.
Yeah. Hey, morning, John.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Morning, Stephanie. Morning, Lieutenant Burrow. How are you all today?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Yeah,
We've
that's
been
the
dealing
way.
with snow.
Oh,
Dang, where are you driving?
Well, I was up in Michigan yesterday with about a foot of snow on the ground up in northern Michigan. I'm actually in Arkansas today.
You can't keep up with him. He's like a rabbit. He goes quickly, the inner bunny. He drives 700 or 800 miles a day.
So everybody got the agenda correct.
yes.
Um, so I know Lieutenant Burrow. I'm sure you're very aware of the Nelson situation. I know the last meeting we had, Stephanie, you didn't know exactly what was going on, I do believe, or you were kind of caught off guard and everything. So that's the reason why we kind of having this meeting again. But have you had a chance to review the videos of the
Yes.
officers involved?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Mayor, did you have an opportunity to review the videos?
Yeah, I watched them.
Okay. So my question, and like I said, I'm going to try to stay on track this time. But my first
Let me
question
keep
here
you on track.
is the fact of it is what was the original reason for Sergeant Coburn to ask for Mr. Nelson's name and date of birth?
I'm assuming you're asking me, so
Well,
he
I'm
called
asking,
the officer. All
you
right,
know,
go ahead.
well, I'm just asking in general of anybody that would like to answer that question and what they, I mean, I know you're the one that investigated it, so I'm assuming you got the officer's side. So, I mean, yeah, feel free to chime in
Well,
or answer or whatever.
in the interest of time, just maybe we can get to the point a little quicker. What is the ultimate outcome you two would like to see from this meeting? Maybe we can start there and work backwards,
Well,
as opposed to dissecting every little part. Not trying to cut you off or
no, you're totally fine.
I think
Well,
it's a valid reason.
I'd like to see some accountability. I would like to see the fact of it is that the investigation. There was a lack or misconceptions of the investigation. I'm not saying that Lieutenant Burrow didn't do an investigation on either one of the complaints that was filed against the three officers, two different occasions or whatever. But I don't understand how you can, again, justifiably allow there to be lies written in a report when it wasn't stated in the in the um, in the
John, let me
video.
stop. John, let me stop you a minute.
Sure.
Honestly, accountability. Want some? There needs to be some more transparency here. We can't talk about transparency and it be a tongue-in-cheek endeavor. You got to actually do it.
Well, let me ask this. So, Ari, then what level, what type of transparency?
Let me give you an example. Last week I called and asked who was in a particular vehicle on my way to the dentist because they were sitting in a parking lot doing nothing. So I thought, oh, well, maybe they're taking phone reports. They're doing their reports in the system, whatever. I didn't have my list with me. So I asked if they were checked out there. She looked. She told me no. I said, that's interesting. Long story short, I asked who it was. She put me on the phone, and then I hear Tabby in the background say, no, we're not going to give out that information. Okay, it's public information. Why not? I didn't argue with Cecilia. She was only doing what she was told. So I let her go. And, I then talked to K-Rig because I called the PD, and that was the lieutenant that called me back. And for whatever reason, he was called into to Brett's office. And it's my understanding that conversation was not a good conversation. And then I received a call back that he was informed that he couldn't release that information to me. Now you're telling me that a citizen cannot call and say, is John Doe working today? I'd like to talk to John Doe. Maybe he helped me yesterday with an issue at my granny's house. Is he working today?
That's not the same thing as asking who a specific officer is sitting in.
It is. I mean, you're asking who a supervisor is in whatever context.
I do see a difference in not trying to be argumentative. Asking is Burrow working today? And you talk to him versus is that Burrow sitting in the parking lot? Why is he sitting there?
Or
You
who
see
is that sitting in the
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I mean, because we have some instances of complaints we haven't even filed for K-Rig, who one night sat in a parking lot for over an hour talking to his buddy. I have all the video of it. We didn't even do the complaint. I gave him a break. And because we can't fight every battle. Okay?
Mhm.
So my point is, if we're shorthanded, why are we sitting around? Why are we not initiating traffic calls? Because people are driving 60, 80 down the road and doing stupid crap.
at
And
the same time, though, you can't say that they're not.
well,
I mean,
he's sitting in a parking lot of a church across from Splash Zone.
Mhm.
I don't want to, again, I don't want to say that he's not doing anything, okay? And maybe he is, I want to give it, whoever, I know who it was, give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? But the point is, the police department says transparency, but everything is now, well, it's John and Amanda, so, we're going to be real careful about what we say. Other citizens have come up there and asked questions and get gaslit. I know this because they've recorded the conversations and y'all don't know about it. I've heard them. It's ridiculous. And so the outcome that we're looking for is accountability. There needs to be some additional training.
I would
Period.
say the instances you brought up, I know that I sat in a training class myself
Okay.
where one of them specifically was discussed, and I've talked to Chief about it. He actually brought it up to me on his own. I didn't ask him about it. The come and go situation training was addressed on that. The Nelson situation was the one that I was actually in the training with the other officers. All of the ones you guys have talked to us about have been addressed as far as training. And as far as the internal, I mean, I don't want to say that there has been any sort of disciplinary action, but it hasn't been to the extent of a suspension or termination. So of course we can't release that to the public. It's covered under FOIA laws that's not, it's not open for public inspection. So those issues have been addressed. I just want to make that clear. I know you guys think that nothing is happening or nothing's being done, but they have been addressed. It's just not to the level of a suspension or termination. So we can discuss that.
So, Stephanie, I have a question.
Yes.
And so there's been training issues. You and the chief have addressed those training issues. The Jack Nelson issue you were involved in on that training. Did I hear that right? I'm sorry if I didn't.
I wasn't involved. I just sat in the class.
Okay. So, and then the come and go incident, that was a training issue, and that has been addressed. Okay. The come and go was not a complaint. The come and go was a video that was put out there on my YouTube page. Somebody said something about it, and whether or not that there was, if they felt there was no complaint there. But I do have a problem when you are doing remedial training. That is a form of some type of, I'm not going to say punishment, but there is some type of violation there. And so when an investigation comes back that there is no, that they're exonerated or that there's no policy violations that exist, only thing that does is that keeps their record clean for that much longer, even though there was remedial training done. There was a policy violation, and I'm not saying hammer these officers and fire them. I do believe that there are good officers at that police department, and I do believe that the supervisors could be good at this department or at Jacksonville.
There's a difference between a policy violation and a training issue. There's not, as well as every other officer, you guys have a little bit of leniency when it comes to working on the street and how you handle certain situations. The come and go issue specifically, that was not a policy violation. And that was, the only reason I bring it up is because it was on today's agenda. But that was a training issue. The officer spoke to Chief directly about what he was taught at Academy, and that was clarified. That was not that was not a policy violation in and of itself. Looking at the Nelson incident, I didn't see a policy violation. Obviously, people can handle things better, but I did not see a policy violation, to be honest with you.
So it is okay, but I don't understand. And when an officer, because I know when I was there that there were officers talked to about this. I mean, Lord knows Chris Burrow investigated me on false statements, that what was wrote in a report that is a official document sounds worse than what was said on camera to make the appearance that the situation is worse, is in fact documenting false information. If I tell you to shut up and you write in the report after you arrest me and I get to testify in court and I read my report to go back over my notes and it says I told you to shut the F up, the judge and you and everybody else that is going to be hearing that case is going to understand that there was a little bit more emphasis on that. And so when you write stuff, because officers are allowed, or we were back then, or several years ago, we were allowed to go back and look at our body cam footage on reports and make sure that if there was any type of situation that we needed to make sure what was said and how it was wrote.
Well,
So that we did.
I'm in court. You're a Brady officer, right? So we don't need to discuss that.
Well, there's a lot of people that should be considered Brady officers. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I mean, if
Respectfully.
you guys, we are wasting city resources. We don't do this with anyone else. We've responded to your complaints, to your numerous FOIA requests. What do you want? Do you want us to fire everyone at the PD? Do you want us to shut
I
the
want
city
you
down?
to do your job
We
and
are
be
doing
accountable.
We can't do our job.
Quit
because-
violating
Do
people's.
not talk over me.
Do not talk
I'm
over
not-
me.
I started. I can't do my job because both of you are sending FOIA requests because you're nosy. That period.
Excuse me?
Period.
No, I don't think
Yes, you
so.
just want to sit and look at videos.
No, I
and try to
don't. That's not what I do in a day.
Brady officer and someone who doesn't know how to do statutory interpretation or interpret policy
Really?
wants to sit here and tell us we're doing our job wrong.
Don't insult me, okay? That's
Well,
your
I am.
first and last mistake, okay? Because we can go down that road.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Because I know some nasty things, and we don't need to go there,
for it.
Stephanie.
What nasty things?
Don't be disrespectful
What
to me.
nasty things?
Okay, the way you're handling yourself professionally right now is disgusting.
What nasty things? Let's talk about it.
You know what? My mama raised me a little bit better, but I'm gonna tell you what, don't you ever raise your voice at me.
Threats are ridiculous.
No,
Ridiculous.
there's no
right.
threat. I'm telling you, don't speak to me
You
this
said
way.
no nasty things, so say it.
Don't speak to me disrespectfully.
Okay. What else?
I don't need you to tell me what we're doing, and don't tell me that we're nosy. The fact of the matter is that his rights were violated, and the fact that you want to sit
You have no
here
standing to say
and
that.
negate that.
You have no legal standing.
No
to say
legal
that.
standing.
No.
So what? I don't have legal standing. I'm a citizen and a taxpayer.
We're wasting our time.
I am a taxpayer in this city,
Right?
and you are sitting here justifying what was done to that
I'm not
man.
justifying anything. I'm saying there was no.
I mean, right out of the bat, there was a Fourth Amendment violation, and you can't even acknowledge that.
Amendment violation.
Oh my gosh. He didn't give his
You also said
ID.
there was an Eighth Amendment violation.
He
This does
didn't
not
give
apply
his
to law
ID.
enforcement.
Yes,
What
it
was
does.
it?
Use of force. Absolutely, there's case law
That's
out
not
there.
use of force. Eighth
Okay,
Amendment
there
is
were
not
use of force. So slamming a guy and choking him in the back of a patrol car is not a use of force issue?
Eighth Amendment applies to the courts, not to officers.
Okay, so you're
I'm still
telling
waiting on
me.
the case law you said you're gonna.
You know what? I don't need to do your research for you. You have
That's wrong.
access. You
You're
have
wrong.
access to everything.
I'm telling you, you're wrong. There is no case.
Okay,
law
you
showing
can
Eighth
think
Amendment.
that. If we really want to go down this road, I'll just call Luther and we'll go ahead and sue the
Let's do
city
it. Go for it.
because I'm really sick of this.
Okay, so
All right,
if you're
hold
going to
it,
bring
wait
an
a minute,
attorney to this,
hold on,
I can no longer
time out.
talk to you.
Stop. Yeah, because of that statement,
We can no longer have this
we're
conversation.
done. This,
The fact of the matter is how dare you sit here and disrespect me?
I felt disrespected for years by you, Amanda.
Really?
Yes.
No, I've not done anything but be kind to you.
We are officially finished because of that statement.
Yeah, I said I could go ahead and call him. The fact of the matter is you guys don't want to do any changes at that police department. You want to cover up the fact that people are sleeping
No,
with each other on
here's the
duty.
deal. This is all your opinion. That's all it is.
It's my
speculation.
opinion.
It is
I have
speculation.
text messages where people are admitting they're sleeping on duty.
That's fine.
But yet y'all won't provide any of these items to us.
It's been posting online.
That's not
Follow
the
you.
same thing.
Yeah.
I can't require someone else to put it out.
I can't help you there.
You can't help us, period, Borough. Respectfully.
Okay.
Yes.
You're doing the gaslighting, not us.
No, I don't think so. There are clear policy violations here.
Again, your interpretation is not ours.
Of course it's not, because we go by whatever narrative we want to.
I believe it.
Absolutely you do. I've seen it time and time again. When are you going to address the fact that an officer said that John Albertson was fired for lying?
It has been addressed. How do you know that it hasn't?
The fact that he put out false information about a former
But once again,
employee?
how do you know that it has not been addressed?
Why hasn't anybody given us a letter to say, hey, we've addressed these issues? You don't have to go into HR issues. I'm talking to him.
Because we are not obligated to put out a letter to you for that, because it is not a violation that requires suspension or termination. Anything else that takes place under those levels is not required to be put out. There are lots of discussions that have taken place, and some of them because of concerns that yourself and John have brought forth. But at that point in time, we are not obligated to tell or give y'all back to you, hey, this is what's happened.
See, and that's the transparency thing. If a citizen files a complaint, whether it's me or John or anybody else, and there's serious allegations, I consider it serious. You guys may think it's being nosy. Fact of the matter remains is a follow-up with the citizen to say, hey, we've addressed this issue. We can't go into what.
That's what the letters are that I see.
That's what I said when we first started this meeting.
Your letters are a joke, frankly.
See, that once again, this is your opinion.
You're right. I'm entitled to mine. Last time I checked, we're in America, right?
I'm not saying you can't, but you're not giving anything that is, quote, like, this is law, this is how it is, this is absolute, this is,
He is not required. Jack Nelson was not required to give his ID, and when he didn't give his ID, he was put under arrest, period.
Once again, speculation on your behalf.
Speculation, I watched it with my 2 eyeballs.
You're not an attorney or a judge.
I don't need to be an attorney.
And that's why they.
I mean, if I wanted to, I could go. Fact of the matter is, anybody can view that and see that what happened was not right. John, are you there?
I'm here. I mean, I didn't want it to get off context, Mr. Mayor, Stephanie, Lieutenant. I didn't want this to get into what it is turned out to be or whatever else. And
well, calling you a Brady officer is very inappropriate.
I mean, and I understand.
At Little Rock PD, what's your point?
We're not in Little Rock. We're not addressing Little Rock.
And that's totally fine. And Stephanie, I've never not been professional to you. And I'm going to continue to be professional. That is your right.
And I've always been professional to you. I've never been rude to you.
I mean, there's no denying the Brady officer, and that I've never denied that.
You did on the phone. You said you're going to drown Tabby in FOIA request in retaliation.
Absolutely, I was, because every time I call, I get the runaround from Tabby. Because all of you guys are friends. You all go to weddings together. You all hang out together off the record.
I've seen Tabby maybe 3 times since I've been city attorney.
Okay, you guys all hang out.
I don't hang out with Tabby.
The fact of the matter is, there is nothing in the policy that says that I can't ask a question. She sent me the policies that they have at dispatch. None of the things that I've raised fall under anything.
It just does not seem like, regardless of what we do or tell you, you're not going to be happy with the results.
No, we want change. That's what we want. And we have yet to see it.
Overnight.
We've yet to see it.
But the issues that you guys have brought up have been addressed.
We have even more than that we didn't even put on the agenda because we wanted to pare it down.
They were addressed when we first sent them, before the first meeting we had. And I apologize for raising my voice, but that's where I am with the frustration, is that we have addressed those issues. But as I said,
I'm not a mind reader.
As mayor, well, that's what I started the meeting with, was saying that those issues have been addressed, but because there wasn't a suspension or termination, that's part of that employee's personnel file. We can't release that information.
And we're not asking you to violate the law.
But they have been addressed. I sat through a training session where that one specific issue was addressed, and I talked to Chief about 2 other instances that were directly addressed to that officer. So they have been addressed.
It's funny that you can't put out their information, but they can certainly put out false information about John's former employment that could potentially disparage him in some way. I mean, that citizen, think about this. We didn't know those people from Adam. I know them now. They knew John's name because the officer gave it, right? That guy reached out to John on Facebook and said, hey, man, I don't know you, but this is what I was told, and I don't think it's right. So, again, you may say it's been addressed in some way. Why haven't there been policy violations? Why haven't there been any paper trails?
The policy that you mentioned was violated was for current employees, not former employees.
Okay.
Okay, so
So that was a violation of the policy.
Either way, it's an HR issue. It shouldn't have been released about a former employee.
It's not a policy violation, though. It was addressed. It's not a policy violation. That's what I was talking about.
I mean,
Interpretation.
it's against the law. It's slanderous.
I mean, if he
Slander
wants
was
to
taken
bring,
off the books in 2013.
It doesn't matter. People still sue for
It
it every
does
day.
matter. You
Don't raise
can't
your voice
sue
at me.
something for it's not a
Don't
law.
raise your voice at me.
I'll raise my
Can-
voice whenever.
No, you won't.
Yes, I can.
Can-
No, we will.
can I,
You will be professional, or I will walk out.
I can do the same.
Good, go.
John,
yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
hey, have you and I, we've known each other for a long time. I think we've had a respect for each other back from even when I was chaplain riding with you and we were fighting with the dude at the hospital, and I think he ended up getting tased 6 times. We go way back. I have always been honest with you, and I'll ask, same question that Stephanie asked a while ago is, what's the desired outcome here?
My desired outcome for any of the stuff that I choose to put out there, and like I said, it's not. And is Stephanie still in the room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's still here.
Okay, I didn't know if somebody got up and walked out. So I'm flying blind over here. I got
Yeah.
ears but not eyes.
Yeah.
So it's not to inundate you, Stephanie, with overabundance of FOIs, and I apologize up front if that's how you and Amy feel. Anytime that I have talked to you or Amy, I have been more than professional, and I can say nothing but the same about y'all talking back to me. So, and you're right, Mr. Mayor, me and you do go way back. I do go back to the fact, Stephanie, that the policy violations that I was found guilty of, the multiple policy violations that I was found guilty of onto the investigations that Lieutenant Chris Burrow conducted on me, on some things that were like I didn't even know that I did, had no idea. And the thing about it is that there is a policy out there that is about professionalism. And it seems to be, at least back in the day, when Chris Burrow was investigating me at times, that was a catch-all. Multiple different levels of that professionalism policy. And I take in great consideration that what you said, Stephanie, about that those issues have been addressed. And I believe you when you say that those situations have been addressed between you, the chief, the officers involved, and any type of remedial training that has been conducted. Now, the remedial training for those officers, I would love to see the remedial training for everybody at the police department.
Been accomplished as well.
Receive that type of training, or receive that type of information, or however you want to word it, or whatever else. But I do, and leave the Jack Nelson incident alone at this point, but the incident where I was brought into a traffic stop, where somebody lied on me about, that is a professionalism issue as a sergeant, bringing my name into it.
Up there, hey, hold on. You hit a dead spot or whatever.
I'm sorry.
You say that and then you went blank from
Okay,
there.
where I was brought into that traffic stop, where I saw the chief and the other vehicle come out from behind, where I stayed there. I was on Facebook Live. I said, if the police department is responding over here for any type of burglary or whatever else, I've got the vehicles leaving on camera and everything else. Went the total opposite direction and never followed those vehicles, but I was lied on and said, even I was lied to by Coburn and said that I was following that vehicle when in fact I wasn't. I never followed that vehicle. I never got behind him or Brett Hibbs, didn't even know which way he was, and I didn't even know that that was Chief Hibbs until after the fact. So there was a professionalism issue there. And I did feel a little bit, I'm going to say, upset, irritated that an investigation come back. And I know that it was, in my opinion, I have my opinions on why it was found unfounded or no policy violations exist or whatever. And that's fine. And we're not going to discuss that. But on a true, honest person, on a true deal, that was in fact an unprofessional thing to do. And it was under investigation by Lieutenant Burrow. And if Lieutenant Burrow did his investigation, listened to the audio, listened to everything that he had to listen to on all the body cam footage of that, if there was a professional opinion in that, or a professional investigation in on that, I think anybody would see that what that officer did that night was wrong, and it would have been a policy violation. I'm not asking for him to be fired, and I'm not asking him for him to be demoted. I'm not asking for, the fact of it is that I just want to, that's not, and if you found no policy violation in that, but yet there was remedial training, and Stephanie, you say that there's remedial training in that. Like I said, I have no reason not to believe you. I've never not believed you.
John, she's trying to answer you, John. Hang on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, sorry for interrupting. It wasn't remedial training. It was in-service training. It wasn't, this is an issue that needs to be addressed. I just fed in through some in-service training because they were talking about reporting and how it helps the prosecutors. And that was an issue that was brought up while I was there. So it wasn't remedial. It was in-service. And I know, yeah.
And that specific I can't even talk to it. The incident was brought up there, and they used that as a tool for training. And
which incident?
The Nelson and Come and Go, both of those.
Okay, but I'm talking about my incident, Stephanie. What about the Come and Go? There was no complaint filed on it. Yes, that was and I do believe that I know you and Brett and a city alderman had that meeting or whatever else, and if it was a training issue, the way he was trained, hey, I understand there's such thing as officer discretion. And I even said that in the video. Hey, this might be a community relations type thing. This might be a lack of training, whatever, or the officer just doesn't want to do it. I find it crazy that he tried to call his lieutenant and his lieutenant didn't answer, and then he didn't want to do any work behind it, but that's just me. Now, but I'm talking about my situation. I'm talking about the investigation on Sergeant Coburn for his demeanor on saying what he said about me. Why was there, how, and I'm just going to ask Stephanie because you seem to be a little bit informative on this, and I want your opinion. How is that not a professionalism policy violation when he did give out the false information? And he gave out information that I wasn't, he lied and said I was following.
So
and even,
he was, sorry, go ahead.
Even Brett Hibbs, even Chief Hibbs' demeanor on that traffic stop completely changed when he realized it was me. Even Brett Hibbs tried to deny that was not my truck over there, but I had already admitted that I was parked across the street because I had nothing to hide.
I think his demeanor changed because he thought when he saw your truck at Goodsell's, and then following, or not following, but then again in front of the restaurant, he thought that you were a potential lookout for this vehicle who he thought they were stealing things. So once he realized it was you and you were not being a lookout for this person, that's why, in my opinion, this is speculation on my part, but that's why his demeanor changed, because he thought that you were somehow involved in what was going on with this person.
Okay, and I understand that, and I'm not saying I agree with it, but I understand the speculation, and I understand that that's an opinion. Okay, but what gave Sergeant Coburn the right to go up there to that traffic stop when the call was over and done, when they were not going to make an arrest, when they were not going to do a report, when they had done all this legwork about tracking all this information down, and telling that person that I was a disgruntled employee that was fired for stealing from the police department and other egregious crimes? What makes that okay? What makes that not a policy violation? Because if you get away with it once, like I said, I don't care if he got a written warning out of it. I'm just saying, why was that not a policy violation? What makes that not professional? If one person's doing it, are they all doing it? I mean, I know there's people up there that have their opinion of me, but still, that is that, and I have my opinion of them, and we can keep those opinions, and that's fine. But what makes that okay? I would have never known about that unless the gentleman contacted me back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
You're fine. From my understanding, the one thing that he said that was not factual is that you were fired for theft. And it's also my understanding he was talked to about that. That was addressed. But he was explaining to the driver why he went to talk to you, because Chief initially thought, like I said, and I know Chief thought this, he told me this himself, he thought that you were being a lookout for this other vehicle. So he was explaining to the driver why he went to speak to you, and then it's going to be on Facebook Live. I saw that as kind of a forewarning, like, hey, if you see yourself on Facebook Live, this is why, because this individual is recording it and putting it on Facebook. The other stuff, sorry, go ahead.
So it's okay for the other officer on the traffic stop to tell him who I was. Coburn knew who I was. Coburn gets a phone call from Hernandez on the way over there. Then Coburn makes contact with me to identify me, tells me that I was following that vehicle, and then goes over and tells Chief Hibbs, that's your buddy over there. Chief Hibbs goes, who's that? Well, that's John Alberson. That's my whole point about all this, is that
Coburn's body cam when he talked to Hernandez. I watched the dash, and I believe it was Griffin's body cam.
You need to watch his.
I didn't see that he call from Hernandez, but if as a former officer, if you see one vehicle at a spot where you think suspicious activity is happening, and that same vehicle is at another spot where you feel like suspicious activity is happening, you're going to kind of draw connections there and think that maybe they possibly were following the other vehicle. So maybe following, it's semantics, wrong choice of words, but your vehicle was there when suspicious activity was happening, and then there again at the stop. So that's why, from my understanding, that's why Chief Hibbs was concerned about your vehicle being there, because it looked like you were in collusion with the other vehicle.
Chief Hibbs didn't even know that that was my vehicle. He was. Exactly. That's what I'm saying he just thought that you were working with the other driver. Right. And I had to explain, like I said, I don't have anything to hide. I wasn't trying to, my headlights were on, everything else. But see, that's the Stephanie, and nothing against you, I promise. But you did not listen, you did not watch Coburn's body cam footage. And so when you don't watch the body cam footage, or when the mayor doesn't watch the body cam footage, or when if Burrow looks at it, and Burrow looks at it from a standpoint, and nothing against you, Lieutenant, nothing against you whatsoever, but when you look at it from a certain standpoint, and you automatically think that this is John Alberson, it's the fact of it is whether it's me, whether it's the recently passed away Brad Ward, whether it's anybody else that we used to deal with, when those individuals filed complaints, those people were supposed to be, and those complaints were supposed to be investigated fairly. And to be honest, when I got that decision, or when we got that letter back from Lieutenant Burrow that day of our first meeting a couple of weeks ago, I did not understand. I still don't understand, but hey, there's not going to be any, I'm not asking for it to, whatever, but I still don't understand. And I looked at it from my point of view as me being a sergeant on a traffic stop. And if I was sitting there going, well, that's so-and-so over there, and, Coburn can have his opinion of me, and I'm okay with that. And he can think that I was fired for stealing and other egregious things. And if he ever wanted to call and ask me what I was fired for, I'd be more than honest to tell him. I've got the case file to prove it. I've moved on from me being fired at the police department. I don't have a problem with the police department in general. What I do have a problem is though when people are contacting me and sitting there going and having questions, and when I do review these things and I give them their opinions and stuff like that, granted, their opinions, I'm not an attorney like Lieutenant Burrow said, and I'm not a judge or anything else like that. But I look back over the 21 years that I did there. And the 21 years that I did there, what Coburn did that night would have been a policy violation. It would not, in my opinion, have been swept under the rug, maybe just being a talking to. It would have been, no, that is, you were investigated. We're not giving you days off. We're not going to fire you. We're not going to demote you. But there's a written warning in your file, or there's a letter of reprimand in your file, or there's a written warning in your file, or whatever the steps are. Now, I don't know exactly. But when there's comes back to say no policy violations, it's a kick in the teeth. And there might be other citizens that feel the same way. I don't know. But that was my questions. That was my concerns. If you say you talked to Coburn about it, I have no reason not to believe you. If the chief has addressed those, Burrows, if you've addressed those issues or whatever else, then hey, I'm not there. I don't know. And so I have nothing but to take your word for it. And that's really all that I can, that's all I can say is, and the only reason for this meeting was because the last meeting was cut short. And so to sit there and go, I didn't want it to get into what it all got into today. And I didn't want tempers to flare because I thought my temper would be the one to flare. But I don't want to seem like, again, that I am overburdening y'all. If, like I've said in the past, and the FOIs that I send in for, if it takes longer than the 3 days or whatever, I've never had a problem with an extension. I've never raised, I've never asked for anything out, even with Amy. As long as she calls me and talks to me, I've been helpful with her. I've been understanding with her. So I don't want, I do find it offensive a little bit that y'all think I'm trying to attack something here when any citizen in this city can FOI whatever they want to. They can FOI, they can go through the crime reports in the newspaper and FOI anything they want to. And the biggest thing about it is social media.
Is when you guys FOI something, you get the information, you use it and turn it around to attack us. And I apologize for raising my voice earlier, being unprofessional. I take my job very personally, and I take what I do personally. So when it just sounds like nothing we do is good enough, I take offense to that. When I tell you the issues have been addressed, I can't discuss them because they're covered under FOIA laws, they're covered under HR laws. I mean that. I cannot discuss them.
I understand.
But the difference is when other people send their numerous FOIA requests, and you guys aren't the only two, they take it, and that's that. I feel like with these situations, it's that almost that you're looking for something to be upset about, and then when we try to address it and tell you it's been addressed, that's not good enough. So again, I apologize for taking it personally, but I do take my job seriously.
Well, and I take it personal
it's offensive
too.
to me when we tell you that things have been addressed, and that doesn't seem to be good enough.
Well, this is the first time, in fairness, that I've heard that it's been addressed until now. Last meeting, that was not said directly to either one of us. Fact of the matter is, I don't appreciate being called nosy. I'm not nosy. Trust me when I say this is the least fun thing that I have to deal with in my life.
No, same.
Okay? I truly, you guys don't realize the number of calls and phone and things that people reach out to us
We have it on the same end as well.
all hours of the day about egregious things that have happened. And I'm
Yep.
like, I can't, I'm only one person. Like, I can't take on the world.
Yes, all of the calls that you're getting, we're getting, maybe not the same, but we're also getting calls as well. So I know you say you're overwhelmed with stuff. We're getting calls. I got a call at 10 o'clock, night before last, about something. I mean, we're all getting calls.
I mean, even
we're
though
all
I'm-
doing the best we can.
Even though I'm medically retired, I still do other things for education that people don't know, help teachers write grants and different things. And so to suggest that I'm doing this to be malicious or whatever, I would point blank tell you if I was. And the fact of the matter is, I feel that I've been nothing but, I'm direct, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that I've ever been disingenuous with you. And as a matter of fact, I've even said, hey, if you need extra time, by all
You
means.
threatened to file a lawsuit against the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so don't say that you've given me all the time.
I mean,
When I was here by myself until 2 a.m. working on your request because you threatened a lawsuit, let's not
we
do
got it
that.
at 10 o'clock that night, 9 o'clock at night, because I have the time stamp on the
I'm
email.
pretty sure I sent John one.
Yeah, there was one. Yes, ma'am. I mean, I know there was one that you had. I do know that you were working late on one because I think we had to go back maybe the next day, or there was something that was the way the file was sent or whatever. If I'm correct in saying all that, I don't. I mean,
Right.
But during that time, you also said that Jimmy Cavan had requested tons of things. And
No.
at one point, Jimmy Cavan did.
Yes, but that was the time when Amy was out of the office, so it was only me working on the
Okay.
request, and that's when you threatened the lawsuit. That's when I stayed up here. I don't know. There were 2 separate nights. One was till 2 a.m. One was till 10. But trust me when I tell you that we are trying to get you your information, and we're trying to take action to correct anything that needs to be correct or needs to be addressed. But it's just disheartening when I know you get a lot of phone calls, but so do we, and we're trying to address everything.
Stephanie, can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
And this is kind of a FOIA question. So when any citizen, let's just say any citizen calls in or writes in or sends a FOIA to the police department or however it gets to you, right?
Yes.
If you or Amy are getting the information from, I'm assuming Lieutenant Burrow or LaDonna or whoever sends the information from the police department to y'all, and y'all go in and you redact that information, right? You have to view it, right?
Right.
And you have to redact that. As the city attorney, when you're reviewing these, are you, and I don't know if you can answer or whatever else, but are you addressing any type of policy violations or any type of discrepancies that you might see as the city attorney before a complaint, even if there's never a complaint filed? Do you, let's just say like the Jack Nelson, and I'm not going to get into it, but let's say you reviewed that and you were redacting it, and let's say that you saw that or you thought that there was something. Is that something that you are going to contact the chief on, or contact or whatever, or contact the officer that made the arrest and and deal with that? Or is it something that, in all honesty, if no complaint is filed, no harm, no foul? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that as in a sweep it dirty shit. That's just a verbiage I'm using.
There have been several times that Amy, she does a lot of the video stuff. She's brought stuff to my attention, and I brought it to Chief's attention. I mean, it's nothing egregious, but it was enough that I felt it was warranted to show it to Chief. So yes,
Okay.
I have brought stuff
Let
to
me
him.
ask you a question. Did you tell a city council person in that meeting, it was you and a city council person and Brett Hibbs, that under FOIA you were going to start charging us for time spent on these issues because it was burdening you in a way that volume and things of that matter.
So this is the second time this meeting has been referenced. I don't know what meeting you're referring to, but I did send an email out under the new state statute that any audio, visual media over 3 hours will be charged $20 per hour, and any subsequent request within 30 days of that initial request will be charged $20 per hour from the jump. Yes, I did say that, but I don't know what meeting.
You had a meeting with Rose Rains, Chief Hibbs, and yourself.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was not the point of the meeting. That was, I guess,
Where
discussed.
horrible things were said about me and John, but that's okay, not by you, but.
I don't remember, to be honest. We were talking about, she brought up an issue about the Citizens Academy.
Mm-hmm.
That was the point of the meeting. So if we discussed the FOIA stuff, I don't remember it, to be honest, but I did send an email to the PD and to Amy, letting them know to track their time so we could start charging people.
Okay.
But again, that's a relatively new statute that I did not want to start using, but when it gets to the point when I'm working till 2 in the morning and my caseload is suffering because of it, it has to be addressed. And I've not charged citizens. I know Bobby was charging per page, per disc, per flash drive.
Who was?
Bobby. For whatever. And I have not charged citizens up until this point. I did not want to do it, but my workload was suffering as a result. So it was the only option I saw.
What a lot of people don't think about or forget is, because, with y'all, the majority of it is, PD FOIAs.
Right.
But we'll get FOIAs from, you name the department. There's lots of people who request, whether it's PD, whether it's fire, whether it's public works, finance, whatever it may be. The stuff comes in from all directions, all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you admit that, because I don't want it to be suggested that we're the only ones and we're causing problems.
No, not at all.
Because that was what I heard, and the fact of the matter is I haven't sent one. John sent a couple. I haven't. I don't sit up days and nights and think, what can I send today? That's not how my mind works, frankly. And John will even tell you, I find this to be a pain in my ass. So
we can agree on that.
But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to support my friend of 25 years, and I'm going to call out things that I feel that are egregious, and we just want change. We want things to, not getting into HR things, but we know that these officers have the ability to be professional on traffic stops. It's there. There's no reason not to be, whatever the case may be. And I understand there's times they have to put their hands on people. I know that they're not the feelings police, okay? We just want them to do it in such a way that people are being treated fairly across the board. And because I think about myself, like Jack Nelson has a seizure disorder, apparently. He takes medicine. He disclosed it in the thing. And it could have caused him to have one. Think about myself and all of my illnesses. What if that was me that was slammed? Could have potentially killed me. And I'm not saying that I'm going to go out. I'm not the kind of person that just goes out and commits a crime and gets in a fight with the police, but you understand what I'm saying. You have to put yourself in that situation. You think, well, what if that was me? Would I be treated differently? How would I be treated? Are we picking on him because he's saying the N-word 50,000 times, which, anyway, so.
I do want to make one correction. I did watch Coburn's body cam, but I did not I watched it from the point he got to the stop, not before. Sorry, I do want to say that because I don't want you guys to think that I was trying to hide something, because I watched it. I watched when he walked to your truck, John, and asked for your ID, and you refused to give it to him. I watched when he walked back and talked to the driver, but I did not see the part where he was Fernandez.
Yeah, so basically he made contact with the passenger side of the vehicle, and the other officer, which I do not know that officer. I don't know what officer that was on the other side on the passenger side of that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
But he asked them in the vehicle, who's in the white truck. Neither one of them knew who I was. The officer talks under his breath. You can hear him say, that's John Alberson. He's Facebook Live. And he says, well, I'm going to go make contact. And so as he's walking across and he's walking in front of my truck, he gets a phone call. Well, his ringer or his ring tone for whatever is caller ID. It says Hernandez is calling. Hernandez is calling. And so he saw and he goes, yeah, that's me. Okay, yeah, I'm walking over or something along those lines. And then that's when he makes contact with me.
Gotcha. Okay. I missed
So-
that part.
So that's what I'm saying is that I felt, and I will continue to say this, it's not going to change anything. I'm not, like I said, I don't agree with the investigation. I do believe that there's policy violations. I'm not saying they're the egregious policy violations like Sergeant Coburn seems to think that I was fired for. But I do believe that professionalism, I do believe that there is an accountability process there, and that, if whether he was verbally reprimanded or whatever else, whatever you say, hey, I don't have no reason not to believe it at this point.
Yeah,
But I do believe that investigation
his hearing's bad.
should have been a policy violation of at least a professionalism policy, and that it was uncalled for in his as a professional sergeant, as a police officer at the police department.
John,
Yes.
letting you know
I'm sorry.
that Brett Hibbs is here. Chief Hibbs has come in.
Oh, okay.
You have for him quickly.
Well, I mean, no, I think there has been a lot of discussion, but I'm assuming, Chief, you can confirm whatever that Stephanie and the mayor or Lieutenant Burrow has confirmed, that the issues that we had brought up over the Jack Nelson situation and or the traffic stop out there in front of the Chinese restaurant that you were involved in that night, they're telling me that these issues have been addressed.
Yeah.
I'm not knowing what I don't want to know what they are because of the HR violations. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We couldn't discuss
Right.
that with them, but they were
Right.
addressed.
Anytime we need to do discipline, I do. If we find a situation where it's a policy violation or misconduct, we address it. Sometimes it's training, sometimes it's paper discipline.
Right.
If it's determination or suspension, of course, that's releasable, but everything else there's privacy issues there.
Right. No, and I totally understand that. And I mean, I know that from my time at the police department. I just did not understand if there is remedial training or not remedial, but what was the word that
In service.
in service training, if these situations have been talked to, if these issues have been addressed with these officers. My concern here is again, when you're told that there's no policy violations, but if there's no policy violations, why would there be an issue that needs to be addressed? So I'm getting cross signals. I agree with what y'all said. You've addressed the issues, but Burrow says there's no policy violations.
But you would have to break down each complaint. The Jack Nelson, is that his name? The Jack Nelson complaint had multiple complaints of policy violations. One of you, either you or Amanda, named several policies, and then the entire policy was violated.
He
so
gives me the policies. I don't do
What
that.
we're saying there, what you're saying right now, I mean, there's multiple accusations of misconducts. So I have found in the past some of those, if they were in a violation, we handled it. If it wasn't, then you got probably a letter saying for this particular thing, there's no violation. And so some things there was no violation. Sometimes there is a policy violation. So, or a training or, just a misconduct, whatever. So I mean, there's multiple complaints and violations that y'all have made. So you're trying to break it down into one, and it's not that easy.
Well, I think the issue is that given the enormity of the complaints. And all of those listed. Again, I don't choose those. John, that's John's wheelhouse. It's not Amanda's. That there was nothing put in paper for these individuals that we know of.
And that's possible.
And we just find that to be a little, I don't want to use the word suspicious. I find that to be a little odd.
I don't want to rehash anything y'all have already talked about if you've taken care of it, because I wasn't here. But the Jack Nelson thing in particular, you just listed generic stuff. You didn't say what the violation was or what he did wrong in accordance with the policy. You just listed policy violations. And so we couldn't find anything wrong other than maybe he could have worded something better, one of those guys. The rest of it, we could not find anything wrong.
The next time I'll know. I mean, I write it based on.
But tell me right now, the Jack Nelson, if that was wrong, what was wrong with it?
John, can you explain to Chief Hibbs, please?
So Chief, just under with my thought process on it, and I could be looking at something totally wrong here, but I do understand that the police were dispatched over there for a call. I do understand Officer Griffin made contact first. Officer Griffin was very professional, very polite, and was trying to get him to a hotel possibly, or somewhere to stay. But there had been no crime that had been committed, and even the girlfriend said that she really didn't know. He just got mad that she couldn't give him a ride back to Texarkana, Texas. When Sergeant Coburn and I believe Officer Junior arrived on scene, they make contact in the yard, and even Griffin says there, nothing has happened here. There's been nothing's going on, basically. I can't remember the verbiage for whatever, but he even thought that there might have been something wrong with the Jack Nelson, like he was slow or something along those lines. But they all three go back over to make contact with the issue of the talking to the girlfriend or ex-girlfriend or side piece or whatever she was. They go over to talk to her, and he is upset, and he is trying to talk, and they tell him, look, calm down. He interjects something else, and that's when Sergeant Coburn asks for his ID. And he says, I don't have to give you my ID. I've done nothing wrong. I have not committed any crimes. I've not done anything wrong. And he says, I'm not going to ask you again, or something along those lines. And he says, your ID. He says, I don't have to give it to you. I haven't done anything. There's been no crime committed. And that is true. That is very true. And the fact of it is that just because the police respond doesn't mean that you have to give your ID, when even the first officer on scene says there's been nothing happened here. There's nothing going on. And when Coburn makes the comment, you have the right to be arrested, then that's a professionalism issue. And I didn't agree. Again, that was just me. I didn't agree that to arrest him for obstruction when you have no reason to ask him for his name and date of birth. He has not committed a crime. There was no reasonable articulable suspicion that he was about to commit a crime. He wanted a ride out of there, and he was just mad. And I think as officers, and I've even said it myself to multiple people, that I think there are times where there was overstepping of the bounds. And looking at that from the outside looking in, that was something that I was sitting there going, that's not right. That's not right. It's nothing against Coburn as a person, Junior as a person, or Officer Griffin as a person. It's that there may be a training issue there. There may be a lack of knowledge there. I don't know. But there is also an ego thing there, it seemed like, on my opinion, that it was a case of the bygones. By God, I'm the police and I asked for it. You got to give it to me. And if not, you're under arrest for obstruction. And when Junior turns around, and this was explained in the letter from Lieutenant Burrow, that it was an ill attempt for reason with Mr. Junior when he asked Junior, how old are you? And he says 22, and Junior makes a comment, oh, you're 22 and still need your mama? That wasn't an attempt to reason with somebody. That was an excuse, but that was not an attempt to reason with somebody. I mean, come on. I was a smart ass for 21 years. That's not, anybody would know that was just a comment made to be rude, and it did antagonize. And I thought that placing the leg restraints around the ankles and making him hop to the patrol car might have been a little bit excessive. And that, you know, when they kind of push him off into the car and he ends up in the floorboard, I thought that would be excessive. But I thought that listing those complaints in general and not breaking down each and every single one of them to the minutes and the seconds on the video, I thought that Lieutenant Burrow, yourself, whoever looks at these videos and looks at it from a outside point of view as leadership, to sit there and go, okay, what is the reason why Sergeant Coburn asked for his ID? What crime was committed, Sergeant Coburn? Why did you feel that you had to ask him for his identification? Because there was no crime. And that's the reason why we wrote those complaints up. The other complaint was the traffic stop in front of the China Walk. And that's what we were kind of discussing, I think, when you walked in, Chief, is the fact of it is that my information was thrown out there. I had no reason to lie. I didn't even know that was you. I watched your vehicle pull in behind the place that night. I didn't know that was you. I had no idea to know that was you.
All right, well, let me go back to the Jack Nelson before you go down that. We did watch the video, and we did notice those things in there. And when it comes to the arrest for obstruction of government operations, they said in that any disturbance we go to, we have a right to identify people. Whether we figure out at the time we ask for it whether a crime is being committed or not. If we go to a disturbance, we identify people. It's standard. You did it for 21 years. We always do it, but they should identify people, especially somebody who's kind of irrational like that guy was, and he wants to get out of there. Even if nothing had happened, they were going to take him somewhere. They asked for his ID. They said before we put you in the car, and he refused. And they do have a right to identify him at a disturbance, at a call. And when he refused to, he wanted a ride, and he wasn't completely rational. I know that Junior's comment was, I don't know if it rises to the level of unprofessionalism. It's pretty close, but it definitely wasn't good communication. And that's things that we learn from. And I have, like all of my patrol has less than 3 years, so we're constantly having to teach them stuff. We lost all of our seniority. We don't have seniority anymore, and we're trying to build back right now. So yeah, on top of that, we're trying to do training and teach these guys stuff. There's always going to be things that can be done better. When it comes to obstructing government operations, and they made that arrest, they asked him for ID. He refused to identify himself. They were at a call. He's the one that called. And they can't ask for ID. You know that. And if the arrest is not valid, they answer to that in court. That's what court's for. If they think they have probable cause, they have training, they have legal training, and they're certified by the state, they have the right to make those calls. And if they're wrong, they'll have to answer to it in court. And you know how that works.
I mean, I understand.
I agree. No crime had been committed up till then, but he called the police. If nothing had happened, the police would not have been called. And you know they have a right to identify people at a call. And when he refused to identify himself, how do we know who the guy is if she barely knows the guy? Then he goes back, hits her, kills her, does something, breaks the windows out of her car. What kind of job did we do if we didn't even go through the steps of identifying him when we were there, and then we have something later? That's not good police work either. I don't know what y'all talked about earlier, but it's
not to that extent. But.
So the guy failed to appear in court. I think they should have got more of a bond out of him, but that's not there's a whole judicial system that's a problem. It's not the police. I'll say that every day. The crime is not just the police. We have people getting out of jail all the time with no bonds and everything. So the guy wanted to get back to Texarkana. I think he failed to appear, and he's to work something out with the court. Didn't you say?
No, he had failed to appear at court on September 13th, I believe. No show for that. The courts have failed to issue a warrant at the time when I called yesterday. They're currently working on issuing said warrant for failure to appear on him at this time.
Well, I can tell you, if we go to a disturbance and we got that going on, even if there was no violence, there was a disturbance and the police were called. They have a right to identify everybody involved, and that's standard.
What about so what about because I know this meeting's gone longer than what they expected and everything else, Chief. So
I know. I'm sorry I'm late.
No, you're that's fine. I know you got things you got to do, and I'm not upset about that. But we were talking about the issue out there in front of China Walk, which you were involved in off duty.
Okay, so I didn't know that was you in the white truck. I was coming down Redmond, and I saw that truck behind Goodsel's at that trailer messing with it. I figured they were trying to steal a trailer or something. I pulled up, whipped in there real quick, and they took off. When I came out around the building, you were across the street.
Right.
My experience in that area, right over there by the city garage, I've had stuff stolen from the city garage, mowers and stuff, trailers. And a lot of times there's two vehicles involved. Somebody's the lookout and then somebody else. So me and my family actually thought you were part of it. I didn't know that was you. I just saw a white truck. But then after I finally got him to pull the guy over on the other side of town, I look over and there's the white truck again. I said, well, that guy's with them. I think he's with them. He's part of it. And we all thought that. And I think that was a reasonable assumption to make until we find out who it is and that it's not involved and it's just you sitting over there videoing the cops. I think any reasonable person, my wife and my kids, thought you were a part of it also.
And I'm not saying that that wasn't a reasonable thought. But
Yeah,
what I
well,
am saying is that they knew who I was before they came up and made contact with me.
no, they did. I don't think they did.
Yes, they did. Listen to the body cam footage.
When I told him, I said that truck over there is involved. He didn't know that was you.
But Coburn went over to Griffin or whoever that other officer was at the passenger side. He asked the two guys, "Do you know the guy in the white truck?" They said, "We don't have any idea who that was or who that is or whatever." That's when that officer on the passenger side and under his breath goes, "That's John Alberson." That's when Coburn made the comment and said, "Hey, I'm going to go over there and make contact with him." When Coburn came,
when I told Coburn to go see who's in that truck, and I didn't know that, but at the time he didn't tell me Alberson over there. He didn't tell me that till he came back. So I'm not sure he was clear it was. I said that truck is involved, I think, because he was over at Goodsel's also. And so I told him to go over there and check that truck. He didn't say to me, "That's Alberson." He said that when he got back.
And just so you know, John was driving around and he saw that vehicle at Goodsell.
I know.
He did not know what was going on, so he pulled in because he thought they might be doing something.
I actually saw you, Brett, is who I saw. I saw you pull in.
And when he saw me pull in.
And so, right, I saw you come off of Redmond Road, and I saw you pull in.
Right.
I pull off in the gravel parking lot, and that's when I made the comment, "I'm going to stay right here in case they're breaking into the business."
Right.
And so when the first truck pulled out, took a U-turn and went back towards Sonic and toward Main Street, then you came out and you kind of slow rolled over in front of me. And like I said, I didn't know. And then because I only knew there was one vehicle behind there, and I thought that was you. I didn't know there was two vehicles back there, you and another vehicle. And so when you pulled out and went that direction, I pulled out and went the other direction. I never once followed y'all.
I know, but all of that's clear. I just didn't know who that was.
Right.
And then when he Alberson, I said, well, why was he over there with that truck?
Right.
But,
John, get to the point of
but my question is why is it okay for Coburn to say what he said on that traffic stop after he walked away from you. And he finished the traffic stop. And he was walked up there and he told them. Now he could have said that truck over there is occupied by somebody he thought he's out filming or whatever else. But he had to identify me by name and then lie about what I was terminated for at the police department. Now,
He didn't. I don't think he lied. I think he just had it wrong.
oh, he said I was fired for stealing and
Yeah.
other egregious crimes.
Either way,
So
shouldn't have said it.
he wasn't there then. He didn't know. That's just
Shouldn't
probably
have
what
said
he
it,
heard.
period.
There's nothing wrong with saying it.
But from a professionalism standpoint, why would he even tell some citizen at a traffic stop?
From a professional perspective, standing there, he says, just to let you know, that truck over there is videoing us. It's going to be live.
Right, that's okay. We weren't upset
We can let
about
the
that.
guy know that. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
But when he said, "Oh, that's a disgruntled employee," blah 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 blah, that was irrelevant in my opinion. Like he could have just said, "Yeah, it's just a guy over there. He's taping. It's going to be live," and left the rest of it out.
He could have left it out. He could have added it. Either way, it really doesn't matter.
Well, it does because it's
It doesn't
disparaging
matter.
to John.
It's disparaging. Have you seen y'all's Facebook post?
It's disparaging to say
Have you
that
seen the
someone
slander
is
and stuff
fired
that
for
you've said about our officers by name, saying who's sleeping with who when they're not?
Absolutely, they are. I have
They
the
are
text
not.
messages.
Y'all have listed names.
So let's get to the point here. I'm not going to stay here another hour.
Well, I'm not
He
either.
has.
I got all
things
day
to
though.
do.
Yeah, I've got my 11:30.
He made the decision for whatever reason to say that about John's former employment.
hmm
In our opinion, it's irrelevant and should not have been said. You would appreciate it if you had lost a job and somebody that wasn't even involved said, "Oh, by the way, he was fired for, I don't know, stealing $5,000 from the whatever." You wouldn't appreciate that.
Appreciate.
You wouldn't have liked that somebody had lied.
So he had it wrong. He wasn't here then. He
Then
was
he should
saying
have kept his mouth
what
shut.
he thought he should have, but he didn't, and it's not a violation. To be honest, it does not rise to the level of a discipline.
Then what does? Can you give me an example? Because we are very unclear, I guess,
hmm
about what
It is.
level of discussion or comments rise to the
That's
level.
you're
of
trying to say
professionalism.
that's unprofessional
It's absolutely
in a generic, broad sense, I guess. How is it unprofessional? He had it wrong. He's telling the guy he's being videoed by somebody,
right.
and why they're doing it.
Okay.
What's wrong with that?
We're not
He had
arguing.
some of it wrong. I understand he had the
Right.
John's personal
That's the part we're talking
part
about.
wrong, but it's public. There's nothing wrong with it. He just had it wrong.
But his firing is not public in the sense that
It is.
okay, but if it is public, then at least be honest and because John has been very clear of every live he's done about the things that he has done to get fired. Like it doesn't take a brain trust to know.
Y'all are acting like Coburn did that on purpose. He lied. The lie is intentional. He had it wrong. He wasn't here then, doesn't even know y'all until all of this started.
Oh, he knows me because he threatened to arrest me over a feral cat in my yard.
He did not threaten to arrest you.
Yes, he did.
We had the
With
video. You put the video on Facebook.
No, I didn't. I've never put that video on Facebook, hon.
Well, you have to lie. I don't
I
think you
have
did.
allowed it, but I never put it anywhere. It's sitting on my desk in my house.
Why y'all are attacking Coburn so relentlessly? He is probably the most honest person I know.
Let me just make that clear real quick, Chief. The incident out there involving Jack Nelson, okay? When I requested the first issue that I ever, or the first thing that I ever had a problem with, or in my opinion, an issue with per se, was in fact the issues out there with Ronnie Ford. Okay, that's all over and done with. I requested random body cam footage of 2 different days just to see, because I wanted to see maybe that situation out there wasn't, because I do, like I explained earlier, I do know there's good police officers up there. And I've not said that Coburn is a bad police officer. I'm not saying that he needs to be fired, demoted, or whatever else. But the whole thing of it is that when the first videos that I was sent that were redacted by Miss Cone in Stephanie's office, the very first 3 videos were those 3 videos that I saw of Jack Nelson. I did not agree with that. I did not agree with that arrest. I understand your side of it, and and that's totally fine. And we're not going to rehash that. Now, I never had any issues with Coburn. I didn't even know Coburn was working the night that the incident over at the Goodsell Truck Accessories happened. Until he walked over to my truck, I had no idea that was Coburn. I knew it was somebody with rank, but I had no idea it was Coburn. And so when he came over and identified himself to me and asked me and told me that I was following that vehicle, then when I got contacted by the subject who he had pulled over the following day and said, "Hey, this is so and so. I was on that traffic stop that you were videoing, and this is what they said about you." And the other person involved in it was the chief of police. That's when I went and FOI'd the body cam footage because I wanted to hear what he said if it was in fact true. And when I heard the body cam footage, yes, I did have a problem with that. I understand your side of it. I understand your look. I understand. I'm not saying I agree with it, Chief, but I understand where you're coming from on your side of that. If it was a mistake, it was a mistake. Do I agree with it? No. Do I think it's unprofessional? Yes. From a person in a uniform? Yes. Did I always do things professional? No, I did not. But there's a level of accountability. Was I held accountable for the things that were brought to on my citizen complaints? Yeah. And I'm not saying that, like I said, if whether or not those issues have been addressed, if they have been addressed, then so be it. But in the last meeting that we had not known about any of this until this meeting. And so, when you came in at the end part of it. But I do understand your side on both parts of it, and I appreciate. Yes.
Hey, John, I'm sorry, I got to dip out.
No,
on you.
you're fine, and we can conclude this. I appreciate each and every one of your time. I know you